to Theorycraft Thursdays, also known as, by our true name, Zombie Thursdays. We are, of course, a zombie culture, zombie media, and zombie truther podcast. Today, we're going to be talking... Oh, also, my co-host is here. His name is Proud. Hello, Proud.
Hello. Yes, I'm coming to you deep from my bunker that I have built under my basement. I actually just recently finished clearing it out. I've got lead and cement lining everything, and the hatch is locked and everything. So, happy to be here.
Nice. So today we are going to be talking about two things, of course, as we do every week. Our first segment is going to be about the movie The Girl with All the Gifts, which some have been calling a refreshing take on the zombie scene, which some non-believers say is rote, but us truthers, we know the zombie culture is still very much in here. And for our second bit, we're going to be talking about the skits from MC Chris's Dead, the album by MC Chris, all about the zombie apocalypse, and how our faithful Chris Ward and his kind companions survive the zombie apocalypse and eventually meet death.
Right.
So before we get to both of our segments, though, let's get casual, I suppose.
Can we
let's
make
relax.
it quick? I'm almost actually out of oxygen. It turns out.
Yeah. Well, you build struggle. You'll get used to it. It's like people that train going like high up in the mountains in Colorado. So that way, like when they Lance Armstrong it down with the regular people, they have like crazy blood oxygen stuff. Anyway, let's talk about our hobby, Dota 2, which is what we do to kill time pre-zombie. Post-zombie, I doubt we'll get much Dota 2 in. Maybe
we'll
Dota
play
1
bot games.
Yeah, probably bot games. So on that note, how has your week in Dota been, kind sir Proud?
It's been fine. I've been trying to be a lot more positive in my pubs, and I've been just receiving waves and waves of commends. So I guess it's working out.
Wow.
Game quality is about the same. I don't really notice too much different, but it's nice to not be given an award by some solo support. And they're like, "Sorry, buddy, I think you should buy your own award." I'm like, "You have a windlace. You fucking solo support piece of shit with 250 gold on a goddamn windlace, you fucking idiot."
Classic mistake.
But I don't say anything. I'm just like, okay, like you have a windlace and two branches, but one tango and no clarities. I'm like, this is how you spend your 650 gold? Branches and a windlace.
So much has been squandered.
One ward and a courier. You don't have a sentry. You saw their offlane award, but I'm just like, okay. Thanks for supporting, you fucking idiot. But I said the last part in my head.
Yeah.
And it's been good. As you know, games have been slightly more enjoyable, just a little less catharsis. But whatever. It's all good. I've been playing a lot of Sven. I've been playing the Mask Sven still, of course.
I feel like
believe it or not, it's the Sven update. Like the Ursa minute's now the Sven minute. I'm not going... We'll talk a little bit about being countered more, and this may come up again, but I've kind of stopped going S and Y in a lot of my games, because I almost always just get shit on with no support. So I'm just like, fuck it, I don't have time for S and Y, and then BKB, and then my crit item, and Blink, and all that shit. No, I'm just like, Mask, Windlace, Blink, BKB, Daedalus, kill everyone at like 22 minutes, and it's fucking dope. So I've been into that, and playing... I spammed a shit ton of Lycan. Like, I think I have like 15 Lycan games this week. Like unreal, trying out a bunch of different builds. So it's super fun, and I'm learning a lot about Lycan right now. And I've been watching a lot of really good Lycan players. And I'm trying, I feel like Lycan has a similar skill ceiling to Lone Druid in some respects. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to like becoming a really strong Lycan player, and that's kind of like my current task.
Wolves are pretty similar to bears after all, right?
Not at all. Actually, there's a Wolf Hunter set for Lone Druid that has like Lycan's wolves like killed. And that actually came out during when Lycan was super strong. Yeah, it was like TI4, and that's when so the bear I used, the Spirit of Anger, is from the Wolf Hunter set, and he has like a wolf pauldron or whatever, and that was when Lycan was super strong. So it's like this cool lore, like Lone Druid is the fucking he hates the Lycan meta, and they made him a set about how much he hates Lycan, like the rest of the community. And it was very cool. I like stuff like that.
That's cute.
But yeah, wolves and bears, they're like mortal enemies. So fuck off with that shit. Like you don't actually
I don't know anything.
Don't know. Yeah, it's kind of
zoologist.
I'm gonna actually look up the Dota 2 wiki and see their responses against each other.
I just assume that everything that lives in the woods is friends, right? That's what Disney told me. I thought that was always pretty accurate. Anyway,
yeah, no, you're right. That's probably correct.
Yeah, they sing songs and stuff, and they're probably rabbits that chime in.
Bears don't sing songs; they rap.
That's true. That's true. Those racists at Disney. Thank God. Okay.
Yeah.
That is the Bear in the Lion, the Bear in the Jungle book. He sings, right?
Well, that was a bear in a jungle, not a forest.
That's true. They're very different. Okay. Well, I'm sure
I don't know. It's just really like obnoxious to hear you talk about things you have no idea about.
That's true. I should repent. I am quite ignorant when it comes to bears, which you'd think would not be the case, but alas. Our freaking podcast network is so bear centric. Oh my God. I think I should think between like
dude, that Proudland shirt is going to be so great.
Me and you are to blame for this. Dude, this is coming out. What day is it coming out on? May 4th? The new website is up on May 4th. I think, hopefully.
Yeah,
we're recording this not on May 4th.
But you know, the .p logo shirt will be, which of course everyone's going to purchase. I'm buying my parents one each so that they know that I'm actually doing things and this isn't some fake thing that I keep telling them about that actually isn't anything.
I'm not going to do that, but
yeah, well, that's because you're like you're so strange.
Well, they also have to listen. Well, yeah, my the more we talk about it, the more my family situation seems strange. I'm sure to us and our listeners. But me recording like adjacent to their rooms is it hammers home the like it's a real thing. But I mean I'll get one. I hope.
We actually don't think we have them in your size.
Yeah, dude. I wear a medium.
I mean we're the same size. You wear a medium. I wear a small, dude.
It depends on the company. I wear a medium, but it's usually a little big. But if I wear a small, some companies it just doesn't fit.
Yeah, well, I just want to show off my pecs all the time, so, you know.
Yeah, that's fair.
Cute boy, tight-fitting clothing. I'm, you know, very, very lithe, adorable, skinny punk boy.
I don't show off my pecs. I just roll up my sleeves on everything, despite, like, my uncomfortable
it's so hard to do that, though,
issues with my
your tiny-ass arms. Yeah, but if you do roll your sleeves up, like... So rolling up sleeves is good, but, like, if you wear short-sleeve shirts, like when I do, my arms just look extra tiny. It's just like, what's coming out of that sleeve? Is that an arm? Holy shit. And yeah.
I don't really wear... Well, I mean, I do wear short sleeves, obviously, but I mean, you don't roll up a short sleeve shirt.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, rolled up sleeves are fine because, like, you know, it looks okay, but, like, once you got, like, a short sleeve shirt, you're just like, what is that? I'm like, that's my arm. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Can we have a sidebar? Proud, are you into Star Wars?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know you don't like Star Wars that much.
No, I don't.
I know.
Yeah, okay. Well, I need to be very careful before I anger everybody. I don't dislike Star
Wars. You didn't grow up
on it. Well, I mean, I kind of did. I just don't care for it.
Oh, God. Well, like, that's because it requires imagination. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, that's not wrong, but I don't... Like, I enjoyed the films, but I, like, people have this crazy fandom for it, and every year, May the 4th, and, like, Roland has brought this back up to me when he's like, oh, May the 4th. It bothers me to no end for no reason. It's just a bunch of people that gather all on one specific day that like something. It's how I assume, like, people that are completely avoid of all of, like, any given religion feel on religious holidays. That's me with May the 4th. It's like, I just don't get it.
Shoving their interests in your face, and you're like, I don't like this as much as you.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's just, I know today on this Thursday, May the 4th, that anyone is listening to this. It's just...
So when Lycan kills Lone Druid,
yes,
he says, I'm glad it was you. Oh no, he says, ha, bears are no match for the cunning of wolves, which is a really rude thing to say. Like,
yeah,
you just
don't insult all bears.
Stop.
Okay. Anything else in your week in Dota?
No.
Okay, that's easy then.
What about you? Anything interesting in your fucking life?
Some interesting things. I finally lost a Bane game. The weekly Bane update. Give your Sven minute. I have my Bane minute.
Okay.
I was on like a 6 or 7 game winning streak, but I finally lost. Although I was 6-1 and 6 at one point, and the Beastmaster of the enemy team noticed me and it's like, "Yo, .p," and then
cool.
I killed him a bunch of times, and then my teammates were idiots and we lost.
Well, you can only do so much by yourself.
Yes. Other than that, I've been getting back to my roots and playing a bunch of TA. I had a 23-1 TA game today.
Yeah, I feel like every TA game is either 23-1 or 18-7.
Yeah.
18-7 is your lose state.
I thought you were like looking at my page because I was like,
no.
My last 3 TA games from this week are 9-3-9, 19-1-15, and 23-1-7. Granted, the 23-1-7 was in a normal skill bracket game, so take that with a very large grain of salt.
Yeah, like a big old rock.
But I've been getting back to my roots with TA. I got kind of down on TA for a while, and we're obviously going to be doing this episode where we're talking about TA and LC. And because
Ta,
TA,
as she's known.
Yeah, Ta. She's one of those heroes that her counters are so obvious, and it's so easy to like psych yourself out. And again, of course, we're
okay. What actually counters her mid? Because every time I see a TA, like, oh man, like they have Jakiro. This is maybe not a great TA game. They have Pudge, maybe not a TA. But like what? Like when someone picks TA mid, like what do I fucking do?
I mean, it's just a strong mid in general.
I know, but what counters it? What counters it mid? Like Viper's a shitty hero. Like, oh, I countered TA with Viper. Yeah, well, you picked Viper, so you lose.
I mean, I have trouble. Like Tinker, of course, the miss is annoying, but that's you just.
That makes sense.
I would say all the counters to TA mid, other than the obvious like super hard counters like Veno and Jakiro, the counters to TA mid are more things you have to play around rather than just straight up I can't play this lane anymore, right? Like she sucks to play against a Invoker if he's good, and he's going to have like an early meatball that can
really because
get you down.
I mean, TA is like classically a counter to Invoker.
Yeah, but if you're bad at TA and they're good at Invoker.
Okay, so that doesn't like answer anything at all.
OD is a fine counter in that TA wants to get. I mean, like I said, these are just things you have to play around. They're
TA
not
is
counters.
so good against OD.
Yeah, but if the OD just imprisons you for 4 seconds, kills your wave, and then it pushes in, it's negligible.
So at best, it's a farm trade.
Exactly.
But then, like mid-late game, TA fucks OD. Like OD does not have the attack speed to get through refraction. A TA can never kill a TA with refraction. It's not a counter.
I'm just trying to think out loud. Basically, Timbersaw is good against TA. Also, I mean, sorry, TA is good against Timbersaw. Sorry, I misspoke. I'm just looking at my list of heroes.
TA is great against Lina.
Oh yeah, I pick it against Lina. Bat Rider. People used to play Bat Rider mid.
Not anymore though.
Warden's pretty good against TA.
Yeah, Arc Warden doesn't sound too bad. That's like the most niche thing. Like,
what else? I mean,
do you think Ember's good against TA?
Sucks. You playing TA into Death Prophet is miserable. Granted, you can kill her pretty easily with her rotation, but if it's a 1v1, she just siphons you, and you're miserable, and it eats all your refraction charges.
Ember's like decent against her, right? Like it used to be, it was like a total knife fight. Like Ember had no defense against her, but also TA had like no defense against Ember, so they would just like kill each other really fast. But now I feel like it's mostly in Ember's favor.
It's very trade heavy. It can go either way.
Is it still just a knife fight?
Yeah, it's very, if one person makes a misstep if it's very also dependent on fours roaming, where I like that we just ended up doing our segment on TA, but the TA matchup with Ember is very finicky. I would say Ember would usually win it, or at least zone. But if the Ember is bad or the TA is really good, the TA can win it. But generally, you just end up trading for him.
I feel like so. It's like I have this very vivid memory of, I think it was like the second arc of Yu Yu Hakusho, like the second big one, like after they left Spirit World or whatever. I've watched very little of that show.
I watched all of it multiple times, so I'm glad we're bringing this up.
Yeah, so there's one part where like, so this is after like fucking Kuwabara like lost his powers and shit or whatever, and I think Yusuke still had some, but like he was fighting some dude. And they were in like some cave. Yeah. And then he like, then they brought it to like fucking, they were doing they were fighting. And then Yusuke had this fucking idea. He rips off part of his shirt and then like fucking grabs the dude's arm and then he ties their fucking hands together. And then they're like having like a knife fight or whatever while their arms are tied together. Like that's a fucking thing where like you can't walk away from the other dude and you're both like fucking attached to the arm. And like, it's like, oh, one person makes one fuck up, like you immediately get stabbed. And I feel like Ember versus TA is like that. Like you're stuck next to each other and you need to fucking kill each other. But like Ember Spirit has a 1 inch longer arm than TA does. And that's the matchup.
I thought you were referencing the part in Yu Yu Hakusho during the Dark Tournament in, I believe it's the first series where Yusuke is like fighting the Australian guy that's an alcoholic, and they put the knives in the ground and then they put their heels to the knives, and then whoever like lets out, and then like the knives go super far into their heels. It's awesome. It's an epic fight.
I was talking about after that entire like tournament arc thing where they like.
Oh, you're talking about post tournament arc?
Yeah, I watched very little of this show. Please don't attack me.
Well, I mean, most people just watch through tournament arc and then they're like, yeah, I'm out, because after tournament arc it gets really downhill. I still have watched all of it, but it's not as good
that's
as
why I
tournament
specifically said like after they, once they're back in the real world or whatever.
Yeah, well, okay. Because there are multiple real world arcs pre Dark Tournament.
But this is after all that shit. This is like second huge, it's like after they leave Namek.
When they leave Namek?
Yeah.
That's the plan from Dragon Ball Z.
I know that. So,
right.
So whenever.
Okay. Anyway.
Fuck you. That's the thing. Like when something happens for it, like, oh, are they still on Namek? Like that's like the joke.
Is that a joke? Okay.
Yeah. Jesus.
So we'll get farther into TA counters during our counter segment, I suppose, and during our TA segment. Other than that, though, I played a couple Invoker games. I played 2 Invoker games. One was an hour and 6 minutes. The other was an hour and 48 minutes.
Okay.
So Invoker has not trended to short games. Also, both were losses, unfortunately.
I was gonna say, it sounds like a win, man. And anytime Invoker gets that late, I'm just like terrified of that dude.
Yeah. I had 105,000 hero damage in the hour and 48 minute game, and I did well, and I kept the lanes pushed out, but there's only so much one person can do, alas. They just late gamed us. Like, they had a Zeus and a Spectre and a Skywrath and a Super Fed Ricky, and it was just miserable. I talked a little bit about it on the Q&A, so I won't go into it too much. But
sure. Yeah, man, Spectre is such a monster now.
It was a brutally long game. And yeah. Other than that, though, not too much. Let's see, I played... Yeah, really not too much. Just a bunch of random heroes. Couple Lina games, couple Bane games, CM games. CM's so good. I built a Silver Edge on CM the other day. It was great.
Yeah, I've been losing a lot of my CM games, but I feel like it's just like, I don't know. I'm just getting like bad games with her.
Yeah, I mean, she needs other people to do things, but she's really good at making other people do things.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, that's about it for me. Okay, so we're going to talk about our segment now. So our segment this week is going to be all about playing into your counters and just dealing with it, basically, right? Because let's say you're first picking TA, realistically, you're going to have to deal with some counters. You're first picking LC, you're going to have to deal with some counters. You're first picking any hero. Realistically speaking, you're going to have to deal with some counters, even if you're first picking a support, right? You first pick CM and they pick a Pudge, or they pick, whatever else. They pick a Zeus and then you just die constantly, stuff like that. So this is a problem we all have, right? Like, it is just the constant
first pick
issue.
Spectre, first pick and Lycan. Sometimes that's just your life every single game of Dota 2 that you play.
Yeah, and this is why drafting is so intricate and all that, right?
Yeah.
So I guess since we were already just talking about TA counters, I will say, to bring that to a thematic thing, is that TA has a lot of lane matchups that are not necessarily counters, but things you have to play around, right? So I would say
let's pull it back a little bit. All right,
okay. I was gonna make scale gradations of counter, but
can you just stop?
Okay, all right. Let's see. What is your formula?
Okay, so let's start it out. What is a counter?
It is a thing that is particularly good against you and or punishes you.
Great. What about a hero? Like, what defines whether or not a hero is going to have a counter? Like, why does TA have counters and something like Juggernaut doesn't really have too many counters, but why does TA have counters but Juggernaut really doesn't?
Okay, so Juggernaut, he does have counters, right? Like Bane.
I know that he does, okay.
Okay, so I would say TA is a hero that has a lot of counters because her core mechanic that the hero is balanced around is refraction, right? And damage over time effects are the direct counter to refraction, right? And this is also why she counters some people, is teams that do not have any damage over time, especially with their level 25 talent. And so she has counters that are direct, right? It's simple. You need DOTs to kill TA. If you have them, you counter her. If you don't have them, you're weak against her, right? Very simply.
Okay, so it's because TA has like a like unique mechanic that is greatly fucking affected by like certain things and then really strong against other things. So it's like a very like feast or famine aspect to it.
Yeah,
that is unique to her.
Yeah, it's like the core of her hero kit, I'd say. So heroes have different cores, right? CM's core is that she's squishy, but she does a bunch of things. So you kill her fast, right? That's so you counter CM by abusing the fact that she has 500 health at like level 15.
So it's like if there's
Anybody's
some unique
core.
aspect to a hero in general, that is really strong but also has a very specific weakness.
Yeah,
or,
something that they
something
rely
super
upon.
exploitable. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So any hero that has something like that's like unique to them, and is like really good when it's like unchecked, but like has a very specific weakness is something that is like likely to be countered or liable to be countered. Okay, cool.
Exactly.
I just Proudland that shit up.
That was good. I can't believe I didn't decide to define counters. And so what I kind of want to get into is that there are gradations of counter.
Sure.
Because there are hard counters like Venomancer against TA, right? Because TA's I think is a pretty good example where she has a lot of counters.
Meepo is like the most classic one.
Yeah, or Huskar.
Meepo I think has the hardest counters, kind of.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Depending on how you want to say it.
Well, even Meepo is a good example also where he has hard counters and then he has things that you have to play around, right? So that's kind of my two big like if it was a Venn diagram, you have using Meepo as the example.
It's not a Venn diagram.
No, okay. Here's a Venn diagram right here, boy. Okay, so Meepo has heroes that don't counter him at all, and then he has heroes that counter him hard, right? And then in the intersection is counters you have to play around, right?
Sure.
So Winter Wyvern, I would say, is one you have to play around, right? It's incredibly hard, but theoretically speaking, you can play around it. Whereas something like Ember Spirit, back in the day when people do the Battle Fury builds and stuff, even now, it's still pretty good against them with the Maelstrom procs.
Or like Sven, you know, like Meepo,
Sven.
like what the fuck is Meepo gonna do against Sven ever? Besides like getting the jump on him and then sheeping him after you have a sheep stick and then killing him. Like if Sven has BKB and literally nothing else, he will kill Meepo every time.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's kind of the delineation I would make between some things are counters, yes, but you can play around them. Other things you just suck again, like you just lose, right? Like you're playing TA against Veno, you're just done. You're just done. You have no chance.
You're playing Lifestealer against Terrorblade, like you die.
Goodbye.
That's what happens.
Okay, so how do you want to go about this? Going into playing against counters specifically, do we want to use examples of heroes?
Yeah, let's use examples. Let's think of a couple carries and a couple like supports or whatever. We can start with TA because that'll be solid. So like, let's say what would make you not want to first pick TA? Okay,
so I mean, the reason you don't want to first pick a TA, using that as an example, is just because there are a lot of heroes that have damage over time effects, and the other big side thing is that some heroes' counters are well known, other heroes' counters are not well known. Right? So TA's counters are very easy. Everybody that has played Dota for more than a few hundred hours that has seen a TA knows. Okay, if I pick Shakiro, or if I pick Venomancer, or if I pick Earth Spirit or Ogre Magi, I'm just going to massacre this person. And you can be like a 4 or 5 slot support, and this TA could be 30,000 net worth. You're still going to eat all her refraction charges. Whereas a hero like Juggernaut, his counters that he does have, right? I would say anybody that has BKB piercing lockdown is at least to some degree a good Juggernaut counter, right? Bane, for instance, great Juggernaut counter. But that's less obvious, right? People just kind of think Juggernaut's a generic, pretty bland hero, so you don't have that aspect of being like, oh, they first picked Jug, I'm going to pick Bane, or I'm going to pick...
I mean, the hardest counter to Juggernaut, in my opinion, especially in terms of lane matchups, like Axe. Like Juggernaut against Axe, that is the worst thing in the world. Miserable. I cannot play that shit. But it's very rare that I like pick Juggernaut and someone's like, oh, okay, I'll go Axe. Like it's normally like, okay, Juggernaut, I pick Juggernaut, they pick Centaur or something. Oh, I pick Juggernaut, they pick Abaddon or Magnus or whatever, so we don't get Juggernaut. But like, that's like a lesser known thing. So yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So that's 2 examples right there, right? So these are reasons why you wouldn't want to pick these heroes, right? If you're first picking, you don't want to have them pick these heroes, or alternatively, if they've already picked these heroes, then you don't want to play TA, or at the very least, it decreases the, let's see, if there was like a scale of what mid you're going to pick, she would be going down on that scale, and other heroes would be rising.
It lowers her stock in,
exactly.
In like, it just lowers her stock as, Okay, so like let's say no one's picking. They picked Lina mid. The only mid that I'm good at against Lina is TA. And my team has already started losing gold, and people are like fighting with each other, and they have Lina and they're 5 picked. Would it be fine to just pick TA and just be like, fuck it, this is the only mid I can play here, everyone's squabbling, and I'm the highest MMR, I'm just gonna fucking lean, I'm just gonna TA.
Yeah, okay, so my general rule, picking any hero into counters is you can deal with 1, 2 is miserable, 3 is unplayable. That's a pretty decent rule of thumb.
All right.
So
well, they have 3. They have turns out we fucked up. Their safe laner is like a fucking Sven. What did I say their support was?
You didn't say, you just said A5. Let's say their 5 is Jakiro, and then they have a Lina.
Well, no,
mid,
so they didn't pick a Jakiro, so they have Lina and what 5 that's not a counter. So like let's say they have Lina and Lion or some shit like that. Yeah. That's not a hard counter. Lina, Lion, and then they pick like fucking Wraith King, Abaddon, and Abaddon is their offlaner, and Earth Spirit or some shit like that. How am I gonna play Lina in? How am I gonna play TA? Sorry, how am I gonna play TA into these counters now?
Okay, so you need to have a defensive wards in mid lane because Earth Spirit's gonna make you sad. And
okay, so you're identifying exactly what is going to make this game, like what about this game is actually going to be hard, and it's going to be. But the Earth Spirit doesn't have dots yet. He doesn't have that until he's 6, right? So are you actually that worried about that early on?
No. I mean, you're pretty stationary early on, pre-Blink Dagger, right? So T's power peaks are pretty interesting in that since you can blink as long as your refraction is up, you can play really aggressive in the mid game once you have that on, but pre that you're really immobile, right? So an Earth Spirit can just like get on you and kick you, and we don't have that many refraction charges early, so that's a little scary. But you're right, so that's like a time based counter, right? It's not a counter until a certain point, whereas something like Veno or Jakiro is a counter immediately.
How are you going to utilize that? So you have identified that like you actually don't have very big counters in the early game, like so to me that would say, all right, I'm going to like put all of my like even just mental, like obviously you're going to play as well as you can all the time, but like you're going to put all of your itemization or like you need to snowball, right? Like you need to be doing crazy good before those counters come in. Like, maybe Lion can like blink hex you and then they can get their refractions down with like Earth Spirit ulti or whatever. But if you're on the offense and you like fucking blink in and 2-shot someone with a Deso and they're dead now, like Abaddon is not going to Radiance burn you if you fucking like hit him before, like if you crit him with your W and he dies before his ulti even triggers, right? So that's how I would identify that. Like you have these counters and you identify like when they are or are not going to be in effect, and you need to like hit your peak or hit a point where you can like beat them before they actually happen to you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the fundamental idea behind playing against counters, right? To kind of, not to wrap it up since we have plenty more to talk about this segment, but to play against counters, basically you just have to analyze, okay, how is this hero countering me and how can I deal with that, right? So a lot of times it's going to be, they only counter me at 25 minutes when they have Radiance and they have Earth Spirit ult. And then you just need to play, okay, we need to have a huge advantage. We need to delay his Radiance as much as possible. We need to take material advantages by the point that it's going to be problematic, right? Or I need to get an early BKB, right? Because some games I would want to go Bloodthorn right after Blink and Desolator, but instead I'm going to go Blink, Desolator, BKB.
But you're against Venomancer and Jakiro, and if you have BKB, that's not a counter. They don't do anything to you.
Yeah, then you don't build BKB, then you cry.
Okay, so to kind of sum it up as TA, and this can be expanded to almost all like core heroes at least, is that you want to identify exactly what the things that counter you are, and a big part of that is that like visualization thing I talk about. Like envision, how does Earth Spirit actually counter me? Well, he like rolls up in on me or rolls up in on me, and then ulties, and then my refractions go away, and then like Lina walks up and stuns me while I'm stunned or whatever. Okay, so how do I avoid that situation? I need to be the one going on people. I need to be the fucking one who knocks. For a Breaking Bad reference, to do that, I need to get this like crazy early advantage, and I need to be like punching on nerds. And then, maybe late game, these things happen, I get stunned out, and then, Earth Spirit ulti or Abaddon Radiance Burn or something happens to me. It'd be nice to be able to like burst Abaddon, so maybe I go for, you probably still go Bloodthorn or whatever, but like maybe if I really am not doing enough damage, I go Daedalus just for the chance to fucking crit him out of nowhere. I need some kind of heavy damage build. Like I'm not going to go like a Manta to break a silence or some shit like that. Like I actually just need to go damage to hard burst this Abba. And I need to like snowball early. I need to make sure that my team is like active early and that we're not, picking a like a Spectre or something that's going to do Brown Boots Radiance and shit and never actually come online.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into another example, I suppose.
So let's do a support now. So like what can you think of for in terms of like a support that like gets countered or whatever?
Boy, that's a good question. Let's see. Supports that get countered.
What about like CM against Lifestealer or Juggernaut? Because like or Slark. CM against any of those three heroes. People are playing a ton of CM, Slark, Jug, and Lifestealer to a point. Lifestealer's kind of fallen out a little bit. Actually, a lot. Lifestealer's fallen out a lot. But yeah, so like those heroes against that's super hard, right?
That is super hard. I will say with supports, when you're countered, you usually have a lot more options itemization-wise, whereas if you're playing something like a TA, it's like, all right, well, I pretty much need to have like Blink and Deso, and if I can throw in
you have a
Dragonlance or whatever.
Well, yeah, that's another thing. Like heroes that get countered normally have, like the reason that they get countered as we identified is because they have a very unique mechanic that like, I mean, the reason that you get... Yeah. So like saying a hero gets countered is implying that there is a difference between them and other heroes, right? Like if this was a game where everything had a hard counter, then TA wouldn't be unique. You wouldn't say TA gets countered. You would say TA is a hero. And it just so happens that all heroes get countered. So it's not worth saying. So like in saying something gets countered, you're identifying that there's something unique about that hero. Otherwise the classification wouldn't exist. And the reason that they are is because they have like this weird unique thing about them. And yeah, so that's... I forgot where I was going with that, but that's an important thing to know.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so some heroes don't... I'm going to ignore that because you're kind of getting me on a completely different tangent.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I like to talk.
With supports, basically, you have a lot more options itemization-wise, right? So you can play item-wise around your counters compared to just playing a hero with a definitive build like a TA. So with a support, if I'm playing CM and they have, let's say, just in some fantasy land, they have Juggernaut mid, they have a Lifestealer safe lane, and then they have some other thing that's annoying to deal with in the off lane. Well, you're just going to have to build into A, mobility, or B, Yule's Scepter, and mitigate that, right? So Lifestealer is going to rage and try to run on you and hit you instantly and kill you with Echo Saber and a Desolator, right? So that's a relatively good counter, right? Because all of her natural defensive mechanics are countered by this hero's inherent kit.
And her offensive mechanics, he's just gonna spit
you. Exactly. So in that case, you just say, all right, he's going to rage. He's going to be running up to me in rage because he needs to prevent me from using my frost thing. So that's going to kill a couple seconds worth of rage.
Yeah. And again, usually, this is like you're again doing the visualization that I like to keep talking about. Like you're saying, this is how the engagement is going to go. Like you're at... If I walk up to this Lifestealer, I will frostbite him, he will Q, and then I will die. So like you see that, and you're like, okay, how do I change this vision I just had in my head?
Yeah. So what you're going to do is you're going to use any number of these defensive items. Personally, and this is also very farm dependent, but in general, your best bet is just to get away from him. Very simply put, right? So you can do that through a Glimmer Cape and pray he doesn't have dust, or pray he doesn't have nearby people with dust. You could Yule's Scepter yourself, which is going to buy time. Yule's Scepter is a great defensive item for a lot of these times where you're countered as a support because it allows your teammates time to get to you, to put it as simply as humanly possible, right? It's not just the fact that you're going to be up in the air for a couple seconds. It's going to be that not only are you up in the air, but your teammates are coming closer to you. Or you could, of course, Yule's them.
Like but, you have an axe on your team or something. You see Jugs coming up to you. He's running up, you fucking freeze him, and then he spins, and like as you're doing that, Axe TP'd in and actually is able to like blink call in the middle of his spin before he just omni slashes you or
exactly whatever. And depending on the counter, the given counter, these are also going to change in value, right, mobility wise. So in a game against a Lifestealer, Force Staff is good but not as great because he's such a fast hero. He's just going to continue chasing you down unless like you are near some cliffage. Well, in most cases, right? Like, very rarely, not very rarely, but 75% of cases, you're going to die anyway.
Yeah, if you get open wounds and then you force staff yourself away, I mean, he may just still fucking kill you. Yeah,
unless you're up a cliff. But even then, he's probably still going to run at you and chase you down. Whereas a hero like Clockwork is a decent CM counter in that she's pretty easy to lock down during her ultimate with all of Clockwork's kit. So Clockwork countering you, you're going to want to build a Force Staff because his mobility is very bursty, whereas Lifestealer is maintained mobility. So you have to go into this game and say, all right, which of these items that counters them is going to counter more of them or less of them or be particularly good, particularly bad, all the different qualifiers. And also farm factors in as well, right? Like Blink Dagger is great against Lifestealer because he has to run into you as CM and it blinks you far away, but realistically speaking, you're playing CM, in a lot of games, you're not going to be able to afford a Blink Dagger first or second item, right? So Yule's Scepter is very easy build up. Force Staff, easy build up. Ghost, what's it called? Ghost Scepter, not an easy build up, but also a very good counter as a support player. Yeah, Yule's Scepter, easy build up. I already said that one. That's fine. Whatever.
Yeah. And it's also like since the gold is such an issue, you want to be countering as many things as possible, right? So if you're against TA and Lifestealer, go Ghost Scepter. Yeah, that's a game that I just played recently. I was against, it was Ursa and TA, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go Ghost Scepter. Like Force is great against Ursa, but Ghost Scepter is pretty fucking good. Turns out.
Yeah, I mean Ursa builds Diffusal pretty easily, unfortunately. So I would probably go Yule's.
Yeah,
actually, I mean no.
If you had the money
build
for
BKBs.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm a Ghost Scepter believer.
Was
that's
the call
for sure.
Of that game.
People don't build Ghost Scepters. Do you notice this as much as I do? People forget about that item. It's not as bad as it used to be, but people still forget about that item. Like, how do I counter this?
One of the standard items for Lycan in the Kiev Major was Diffusal because of how many Ghost Scepters. I have not had to build a Diffusal in any of my games playing Lycan. It's been beautiful.
Yeah. Oh man, Ghost Scepter. I love Ghost Scepter. I have so many support E-Blade games just because I build Ghost Scepters all the time and I'm just stuck with them.
Yeah.
Okay. I think another element when we talk about supports, dealing with counters to them, is you have to make the opposing counters overcommit to you. This is a good general rule of supporting regardless of whether you're countered or not. But if you are forcing an exorbitant amount of resources from the enemy team to be used on you, a 5 support or a 4 support, then you are winning. It's a pot. Yeah. And that's
the pot this game. Everybody come get your wards.
And that's a huge amount of value, right? When I used to not joke entirely, but kind of joke about my Rubik armlet builds, it's because it required so much investment to kill a Rubik that suddenly had all this extra health and all this extra armor and stuff.
Need to, their Lifestealer needs to think about killing you. Like, a Lifestealer doesn't have brain capacity. He's not going to be like, Unga, CM have, or Rubik have armlet. I need to go to him and kill him. Like, Unga. Like, that's like, I need to attack and then wait for the toggle and then attack. Like, no. Lifestealer doesn't have time for that thought. He's got 3 seconds of rage and his mind is fucking racing.
Yeah, exactly. So... I will say, man, I got so much crap about that. I argued about that build for months. Freaking Rubik armlet.
It's. I mean, it's not that serious, but it's hilarious how effective it is in some circumstances.
Yeah, it's not as bad as you think it is, and it's definitely not as good as you think it is.
It's not. It's not as good as you think Sam thinks it is. Is the main thing I would say.
That's fair. I'm also an armlet player. That adds some value. Let's see. That's kind of just supporting getting countered. Some of them.
I want to just talk about that for a second because that was people saying Doom is a counter to Omni Knight because this was when people were playing 5 or 4 Omni Knight and offlane Doom. Like, oh man, Doom is so good against Omni Knight because then you Doom him, then he have no spell. Then he have no. You Doom the Omni Knight, and then he have no spell. But it's you just traded everything your offlane does for their fucking 5. That is not a counter. That's a bad thing. And that's why 4 Doom is really good. Because if you play a 4 Doom and then you Doom their fucking Storm Spirit, you just traded your 4 for their fucking Storm. That's awesome. But if you play them in the off lane, you're trading a core for a core at best. Anyway, that's Doom. That's Doom discourse for the day.
Yeah, I mean, Doom sucks right now.
Doom's fucking bad, dude.
Thank God. I hate that hero so much. I know you like him, but good God.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a big Doom. I mean, I've hated him since they nerfed his base attack time.
Yeah, I know you like the Radiance Doom.
I loved the Radiance Doom back in the day, man. That was my classic.
Yeah, so we talked about we talked about playing it from a core perspective, in a vague sense. What do you do when your carry, specifically carry, is countered? You're playing X, pick
Sven.
a carry.
I'm playing Sven, dog, and I'm against Timbersaw in lane. And because this happens all the time, this is my life. And I talked about this a little bit, I think last week or the week before. This is even true with Lycan or whatever. And then they have they have a CM support. CM is so fucking hard as Sven to deal with. Holy shit, that hero is a monster. But I just need to identify exactly what I need to do, what my lose state is. And so against Timber, my lose state is Timber gets 3
and either maybe he'll get Timber Chain at level 2, and it'll be level 4 until he gets his Whirling Death. But I know for a fact the second Timber gets 3, I can no longer force him out of lanes. So I basically just like I identify where I have the ability to disrupt my counter's ability to become my counter. So I need to stop him from getting 3, and it's easiest to do that level 1. So I just like I buy a Mango and a Clarity with my starting goal. I spend like the extra 50. And I just tell my support, like, we're going to fucking kill this guy at level 1. Even if I know we aren't, I'm just going to tell them that. And we are going to just fucking attack the shit out of that goddamn Timber Saw and ensure that it is as hard as fucking possible for that dude to get level 3. And that's just like what you do. You identify what your counter is. You do everything you can to stop. It's like you see the future and then you do everything you can to change it. You know, like it may be futile, but that's your task. You can't let your fucking moms die of cancer, right? You gotta try to stop her from eating all of that bacon with carcinogens in it.
Okay, that was a metaphor,
right?
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then for later on, like, oh yeah, and then in the fights, Timber's gonna do a shit ton of damage. It's gonna be dangerous. Or oh no, I'm against the Spectre. I like lose late game. And also I'm not going to be able to deal with, I don't know, like no one really beats Sven late game. They have like too much disable or whatever. Like we're against CM and shit like that. So like, Bane. I know if I go into CM and Bane. So I know if I go into these team fights, it's just going to be like, it's going to be a fucking tall order for me to accomplish anything. Like if I go S and Y Blink, that's a really strong build. Like there may be really strong builds, but you're just going to die before you can actually use them. Like maybe your build isn't good against that. So you have to like retail what you're doing. Like if you're playing Lifestealer against Skywrath Mage, normally like, oh man, this team is like all magic damage. It's fine. But they have Skywrath Mage who silences you and then everything's fucking done.
Yeah.
Or you're against like there was a Lifestealer in the Kiev Major that was against a Storm with Bloodthorn, and the caster was like, why does this guy have Manta? Why does this fucking Lifestealer? Why do you go Manta? And the observer, I think it was Scriff, kept like selecting Storm and like circling over the Bloodthorn. He's like, it's the Bloodthorn. The Bloodthorn is why. Yeah, so like you have to. So you say, okay, I'm against the silence, and it's a big problem. So I'm gonna modify my build. I'm gonna go with a shit ass build, but I'm gonna go Manta, and I'm gonna have to try to figure out why. So like you need to do stuff like that. You need to kind of change it up and see like I'm counter because of this thing. How can I fucking rewrite the past so that this future does not come? And that'll be like, oh, I need to like, you know, like my win state against CM as Sven is I have a BKB and Mask of Madness and Blink, and I fucking jump in there, stunner, and I'm like, and I just fucking like 4-shot or in like half a second, and she just fucking destroyed, gone from this earth, no trace of her left in existence. I've saved the future. So I said like, fuck it, I don't need S and Y. I'm just gonna get to that like Blink BKB Mask of Madness phase and just fucking get there. So that's how you deal with counters. You identify like, what is this shit situation gonna look like? How can I get to the point where I can avoid it, or how can I end the game before that happens as simply as possible? Yeah, and that's like normally comes in the way of like changing up your builds or ensuring that you're fighting way earlier, where it may normally not be optimal. Normally, first wave you want to get CS against Timbersaw. First wave, like your CS doesn't matter. What matters is whether or not Timber's going to hit level 4 and Whirling Death you until you're just fucking erased from this world.
Yeah. So we've gone over basically that you should be dealing with your counters in some generalized ways that one deals with counters, right? It's risk analysis at a very basic level. So I think we've all played games, right, where we see somebody say, oh, I'm countered, and they overcommit to dealing with a counter, right? So let's say you're playing Sven again, and the enemy team has a Bane, and the Bane is ulting you every time you blink in, you kill the CM, whatever, but then you get Bane ulted and you get massacred. Right. And then, you know, we've seen Sven's maybe a bad example, but we've seen, let's say the Sven say, all right, I'm going to go Lincoln's, and then I'm going to yell at my support to go Solar Crest. And then he ends up having a Lincoln Sphere and a BKB and a Blink Dagger and a bunch of small items, and he doesn't actually deal damage even when he is not disabled.
Never gets to his crit. Yeah, and then it's just like, well, your Sven counters their supports, but that's about all he does. So now there's now like you can't even kill their fucking Meepo that you were supposed to counter now.
So what would you say is the good guideline for when to stop dealing with a counter? Like, would you say it's like one item worth of commitment, or is it a mental point where it's like, oh, they're not a threat to me anymore?
I'd say it's like that's another. I would have to like pull out the like. Well, it's kind of situational, but there's definitely a balance between changing what you're doing, like becoming suboptimal in order to deal with a counter, and just playing around it, right? So like if I'm against a Bane as Sven, I'm not gonna go Lincoln Sphere ever. I don't think I would ever do that. I think I would say, okay, like I'm just gonna not engage until there's no chance I get a Fiend's Grip.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do that. Or I'll only engage if it looks like my team is ready to interrupt Bane. Like if I have a Lion waiting behind me with like his Blink Dagger, and then Lion's going to just like blink up and hex the Bane the second I get whatever. Or we have a Silencer waiting and like, oh, the second I get Fiend's Grip, if he has like, Bane has BKB and Bane BKB grips me and then like silence. And then like, then it's no problem. So like normally almost any counter, like, if it's only really you that they're countering, like Meepo against Winter Wyvern, just don't do anything until Winter Wyvern does something. Like the second you see, oh, Winter Wyvern's here waiting to like blink and like to blink curse me, I'm just not gonna fight Winter Wyvern. I'm not gonna do that. And I'm gonna wait until the fight looks good, like after someone else initiates, then I'll do it. I mean, that's not great. If you're obviously like if you're Magnus and you need to initiate or whatever, and there are like Venomancer wards everywhere and your life is very hard, like, yeah, it's kind of hard to avoid that.
Blade.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can, there's always ways to just like get around shit. Unless, sorry?
Venom wards are just terrible. I mean, they're annoying, but they really are just like one of those annoying spells that's really just, I honestly just think they're not good.
Oh, dude, man.
Unless you're level 25.
I haven't played Veno in a while, but man, like my support Veno days, literally all I did as 5 Veno was cancel blinks. Like we would be high grounding and I would just like force staff myself forward and die, but I'd get a deep Veno ward and it would just hit a Magnus twice and then they would like fuck up their initiation. We'd win off of it. Oh, God, those are beautiful days. They're great, man. You don't know what you're talking about.
No, I mean, they're good. They're good. It's just, they feel very lackluster at many points.
There are a lot of times where someone puts down, where like some Venomancer puts down a couple boards and you're like, area defended. It's like, dude, these don't do anything.
Yeah, you just fed the enemy carry 28 gold.
Yeah, they cancel blink daggers. That's all they do as far as I'm concerned. But that's all that's all I need. Yeah, as far as like makeshift towers, they don't exist.
Until 25, dude. The 25 wards are pretty...
those are ballers.
But everybody's so mobile nowadays in Dota. That's what I'm really down about them.
Yeah, the like, poison doesn't cancel blink daggers is another thing. It's only the hit that does.
Yeah.
Weird stuff.
So, yeah, I'm sorry. That was a tangent.
Yeah. I mean, I think we covered counters pretty well. Like, it's a balance between you want to like itemize around playing around it, itemizing around it, and to one degree, playing around it may mean not playing the game at all until it's taken care of. Like, if I'm, there are a lot of times with Sven, I'm like, man, my team has no initiation. Like, I need to go in, but they have this like CM and shit. So it just like really sucks that I have to BKB the second I blink in, and then I don't have it once. Like, you know, if I'm against, I don't know, Juggernaut or something. Like my counter to Juggernaut as Sven is I press E and then no one takes any damage from his Omni Slash. But also I need to blink initiate because my team has no stuns or something. So like what the Juggernaut does is I like, you know, go in, blink, BKB, stun the CM, and I have of course I buffed everything up because I'm also using Mask of Madness, so my War Cry is going too. So Juggernaut just says like, fuck it, I'm not gonna screw with this shit. And he waits for me to like blow on my combo, and then he goes and kills me. And like that's great. Like Juggernaut hard, like Sven is almost a hard counter to Jug. Like that's so hard to play into. It used to be a straight up hard counter when Helm of the Dominator was the build and that gave you armor. But now that Sven is a bit less armor that he's working with, Juggernaut's a decent amount better at him or against him. But like, yeah, that's super hard. But this Jug that I was playing against, I like directly identified like, oh hey, I'm just gonna wait for Sven to do his shit, and then I'll just kill him once he uses his skills. He's just a hero, and heroes can die despite what Mercy says.
Yes, that's for sure. We're not. Overwatch heroes might not die, but in Dota heroes definitely do die.
They die like a shit ton.
Yeah, constantly. So let's get into our combo, shall we?
Sure.
So for this day, we're going to be playing another Kiev themed combo. And I'm going to be playing Templar Assassin, as we talked about a lot earlier, so we won't have to talk too much about TA. And you're going to be playing offlane LC, which was one of the meta things we saw a lot of. It was particularly effective against Terrorblade, although Terrorblade always beat it, but theoretically speaking, people pick LC as a Terrorblade counter. And LC was definitely one of those kind of standout heroes, I would say. A lot of first round pick or ban. Pretty consistent build too. It wasn't like she was doing some crazy new thing. It was just like, all right, I got buy PMS, then I go phase, and then I buy a blink, and then I get a Shadow Blade, or like an armlet or whatever.
Yeah. Blade Mail most of the time.
Blade Mail, of course. And also I think that surprised a lot of people. I mean, granted, I don't watch that much pro Dota, but I was surprised to see LC. Like I thought she was a strong hero for a while, but I did not think she was like first pick ban strong. Although she fell off later in the tournament. So,
I mean, a lot of that is just the players. Like, because whenever you say like something falls off later in the tournament, a lot of it is like, well, what
the
players
teams are out
playing?
that pick it.
Enigma is like top tier at the end of the tournament, but like that's because S4 is the only offlaner at the end of the tournament, so of course it is.
Okay, so I guess since we talked about TA earlier, I'll just kind of run through quickly since we talked about a lot of counters and playing TA in lane and all that. So TA, her strength is laning, right? Like just as a hero, she is a strong laner, right? So you have to play around and accent your ability to lane, right? So the fundamentals of TA in lane are just practicing side blades. So generally you skill side blades level 1, and side blades level 1, you can hit them pretty easily if you're pretty good at it, but it is notably better to hit enemies with side blades level 2, which you get at level 4. And then of course you're maxing refraction whenever humanly possible, because that is your bread and butter for sure. People used to get meld early, but nowadays people don't get meld early. You get it usually at like level 8. Some people get a third point in side blades that I've seen, but in general, most people did not. 2-point side blades is kind of a break point, I would say, in that you get so much effectiveness out of 2 points, but 3 points and 4 points becomes a little like, you don't really need this. And if you're getting your meld at levels 8, 9, 11, and 12, or 8, 9, 10, 11, which I've actually been doing, and skipping her level 10 talent briefly, that synergizes usually right with your blink timing. So in my recent games, I've had my blink, Blightstone, Aquila, Bottle, and Magic Wand and Treads right at almost exactly the same time. I'm getting my blink. I am having at least level 3, usually level 4 meld. And that's the perfect time you want to have. And that's why I've been skipping at 10 sometimes. Or rather, skipping the level 10 talent.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, there are a lot of heroes that I've been kind of delaying the level 10 talent pretty significantly on.
Yeah, I've kind of moved into that because a lot of them are so simple. It's like TAs is a difference of, what is it? It's 25 attack speed or 20 move speed.
You always go the attack speed, right?
Oh, yeah, always attack speed. But 25 attack speed, as great as that is not game changing. And in the early game, around this like level 10 peak you're getting, you want to be bursting heroes, right? You're going to be two-shotting people, ideally. And you get more effectiveness out of having an extra 2- armor and 50 bonus damage on your meld than you're going to get from 25 attack speed. In some cases, of course. It is a mixed bag. Just looking at a bunch of high MMR players, they almost always get the attack speed at 10. But alas, I like meld strike a lot. And in lane, so some people skip bottle. I hate that people. No, nobody skips bottle. Some people skip bottle. I'm looking at it. It's freaking shrines. People skip bottle. I hate that. I'm a bottle purist. Much as they nerf bottle every patch.
I don't go it on Shadow Fiend or like OD or Sniper or anything. But on TA, I think it's fine.
Yeah. Also, because she has a spam refraction.
Yeah, so, she doesn't have a mechanic to get her mana back. At all.
Other than like your Aki. But anyway, so you start Wraithband and 2 branches or branch Fairy Fire or 3 branches, pool tangos, or if you don't have supports, just go Wraithband and tangos. Then you get bottle and then boots. And when you're getting your boots, you also get a Blightstone. Then you finish your Aki and wand usually. Some games, I suppose, you might not need the wand for your matchup, but it's pretty darn good. Then you finish treads, then you get blink, and then you get Desolator. There is an argument to be made for getting your Desolator before your blink dagger. And that argument usually boils down to, are you fighting a lot or do you need to burst people? And I recently have been going Blink first, but for a long time I always played Deso first. And there's definitely, both are good, but in general I'd say I prefer Blink first, because Blink also, it offers you a lot of defensive potential in addition to offensive potential. And I really like that synergy between having max meld strike right around your Blink timing. I find that so good. And then you get Deso, and then it kind of breaks off depending on the player. So a lot of people are going Heaven's Halberd, what's called Hurricane Pike, but a lot of people aren't. It's kind of a mixed bag, and it's up to your player preference. Personally, I was playing Hurricane Pike every game for a good long while, and now I've tried my last probably 5 or 6 games without it, and I'm not 100% on either camp. I kind of really like the Hurricane Pike, but at the same time, you're blinking on people. You don't need the extra range. And, and unless I need the utility of the Force Staff, which is a huge amount of utility, Blink Dagger is usually enough mobility. And it delays your BKB, and it's like slot expensive for a hero that has so many big items. So the jury's definitely out on that one. I would leave it up to your discretion, kind of listener, and just as I leave it up to my own. And then after that, you're going for your BKB almost always. This is just a hero that needs a BKB because you're trying to burst people. You don't want to get CC'd. And then some combination of Bloodthorn, which is mandatory, but then also usually your 6th slot either goes to Butterfly or an MKB. Or I built a Scotty recently just because I was like, man, I need stats. Like, I'm just getting massacred by Zeus, and my BKB is only 5 seconds. So use your discretion for the 6th slot. I've seen some AC also, just a lot of attack speed.
Yeah.
Talent-wise, her talents are pretty decided, I would say, just looking at them now. I almost never pick half of them, right? So you pick 25 attack speed at 10, 100%. 6 all stats at 15, 100%. At level 20, I would go 40 damage, almost 100, probably 90% of the time, but 270 of health is nice, especially if you're not building any stat items. But it is just, the plus 40 damage synergizes so well with having your Bloodthorn. I mean, people don't really build Daedalus that much anymore. People just build Bloodthorn. And then at 25, you always pick 3 refraction instances. 3 refraction instances added is wild. It's actually mind-bogglingly strong.
It's like fucking absurd, honestly.
It is disgusting, no joke. And also it messes with people's like internal clock of like, all right, we've taken off this many charges, because people just have that general feel for things, but then they're like, oh god, we have to recalibrate everything because this person hit 25.
Yeah.
And I've dodged a few Lagunas in my day thanks to those extra couple refraction charges. And that's TA. I pick her in advantageous lane matchups, and like we said with counters, I pick her as long as there's not more than one counter I have to play against, which is just more than one dot damage based hero that can really hassle me. And yeah, I mean that's TA. She's fun. She has a high skill cap, but a low skill floor, I would say, if I had to rate her. You can, if you watch good TA players, their use of Psyblades is disgusting. It's actually offensive how good they are.
Yeah, I mean, I hate playing against TAs.
Yeah, it's a weird metagame that you don't expect. If you're not used to like playing against TAs or playing STA, you never expect the Psyblades.
No, it's not that I just like every time it happens, I'm like, this person is like, it just seems like such a I don't even know how to phrase it, but like anytime I get Psybladed, like you know when Shadow Fiend denies a creep and the first time he does it, he goes like outplayed, and you're like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
Like what is
a slap in the face?
Yeah, like you know that they're like immediately they just like stroke themselves like, oh, I'm so good. Every time he's just so predictable. He's just predictable, and then it's just like fuck you. And that's every time I get Psybladed, I can just feel like someone's ego growing and like their opinion of me dropping and be like, I'm so much better. Look at all these Psyblades I'm getting. Every spill, it's just more damage on this fool. Like, God, I hate you. Anyway, that's how I feel when I play against TA.
Psyblades also, if you're not a TA player, be aware that it goes off of denies as well. So you'll see a lot of the really strong TA players, what they do is they will hit refraction, and then to beat the enemy mid out, the enemy mid's going to be going for gold over the deny, just because that's how, you know, the equation works as any player. Gold is more important than denies. What they do is the enemy team goes in for the kill on their creep. They pop refraction, so they have a huge damage advantage. and then they Psyblade in the direction so that they deny their own creep and kill the enemy creep all in one foul swoop. And it is probably the fundamental of TA in lane.
Well, also, I don't know if you did mention, but refraction charges don't drop off when you are denying. So if you do have refraction up, you can just like repeatedly, not only can you deny like with huge amounts of damage, like what is it? You probably have like 60 damage on TA with just your items, and then you get refraction, you've got like 80 damage. So you have like infinite 80 damage denies when you're playing TA on the first wave. That's why like TA against Shadow Fiend sucks so much, because you were never going to get a last hit.
Yeah, that's one of the few matchups that I would go refraction level 1 on. Is those matchups where you really want to abuse the fact that you have more damage. But yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's TA.
Sure.
People know TA. Let's talk about LC though, because LC is a hero that we all know is like this annoying jungler, but she's actually a good offlaner. And yeah. So talk about TA a little. I mean, LC a little.
Okay. So Legion's like a pretty good hero. She's definitely benefiting off of like the metas that have shifted, like Lifestealer being out a good amount, because Lifestealer is kind of like the main safe laner that Legion doesn't want to go against.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she's really good against Tri-lanes, of course, because of overwhelming odds. Which like her Q is her like best skill, especially early game. And it gives her, does like a ton of damage the more heroes that she's dealing with. So it's kind of like how Undying, the more heroes that they have, the more strength he's going to steal. So like he is unique in that he gets stronger the more people he's against. Legion Commander is similar. Like the more heroes that Legion is against, the more useful overwhelming odds is. 1v1, not that useful, but like if it's against a dual lane or a tri-lane, super, super good. So she does have the ability to kind of combat the big lanes a bit. But also like the general meta is that there are only three, like you're only against 3 heroes a very like small amount of time. So she can basically save her overwhelming odds for when there's 3 heroes in lane and when she's getting dove or whatever. And then you like rely on the rest of her kit for every other time. She can jungle well, so if you are against a lot of stuff, you can like, do your overwhelming odds to like piss off their 4 and 5 and their carry and do a shit ton of damage, and then like retreat to jungle until overwhelming odds is like up again or whatever. And she has a dispel. She's definitely very good for that. She's like a bit of a defensive carry. So like if you're against a Mirana or something, not carry offlaner. If you're against a Mirana or something like that, or a Bane, for instance, and Bane's entire hero based around this 100-second cooldown channel disable, and you have a Legion on your team, she just presses W and clicks on someone, and instantly that hero is just useless. So like she has a unique property about her. Which like going back into like what makes counters and what makes heroes counter other things. Similarly, like having a like really unique thing in this dispel that's like hyper specialized makes her a good counter to a lot of like different very specific things. Like anyone with a long single target disable, she's fucking fantastic. Moment of Courage also, she has like a great ability to just like fucking brute force like 1v1 someone. And try to like beat someone out of lane. So if you are up against a relatively weak safe lane, like let's say they have a Spectre or something and their supports rotate out, you can get that point of Moment of Courage, and you have like PMS Moment of Courage, and you can just beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, and you go phase, so you have the movement speed advantage. So you just walk through the creep wave, slap them around, and then walk back and get your CS.
So she has like a number of elements. One, she's like you can jungle with her if your lane is too hard. If you're left 1v1, you can fight their carry almost and have an advantageous matchup almost all the time. And also she has like a defensive spell that's kind of whatever. That's like nice. It's like sustained for her rather. And then and also in her overwhelming odds, like, she has a way to fight 3 heroes. So like it's kind of, she has a different tool for every situation she's in. If it's like an attrition fight, she can rely on some clarity potions and press the attack for her regen. Or like the Shrine giving a ton of regen in that it heals your health and gives you more mana to press the attack to heal yourself up. She can deal with when there's a lot of heroes with overwhelming odds, and she can jungle or fight their carry 1v1 with Moment of Courage. So she kind of covers all her bases right now, which is just really, really strong. And then she has Duel, of course, and that's like her it's
bread and
like
butter.
Normally. It's kind of like what defines her, but it's like the way that she fits into like your team fight ideas. She has the defensive skill or whatever, but like their main idea with Legion is you want to say, like, okay, what hero am I going to want to lock down and potentially kill in my duel?
Yeah.
So if like they have Storm Spirit, okay, I'm gonna like try to duel the Storm Spirit every fight, such and such. Yeah, so she's like very either pick off oriented or very organized team fight oriented. If you don't have a lot of control to open up the path for your duel, you need to like, picture that. Okay, what is this team fight gonna look like? Oh, they have a silencer and a warlock and a specter. Probably if I like blink duel, even if they have a storm and I blink duel the storm, there's going to be a rock dropped on top of me. Specter's going to haunt in and global silence and everything's going to fuck up. Okay, so I'm not going to try to like do a crazy team fight with my duel. Instead, I'm going to focus on pickoffs and shit and go fight wherever I know their storm isn't, or only once we have the tools to disable BKB or global silence, or when I know that their warlock isn't anywhere near. So you have to like identify, is a duel going to be an initiation, or is it going to be the perfect opportunity for the enemy team to like counter everything we do?
I think duel is, I would say, maybe one of the abilities with the most misconceptions about its usage, right? So I think a lot of people use duel as a way of like, all right, I'm going to get damage every fight. And it's like, okay, I'm going to duel the CM. It's like, sure, you farm damage off the CM, but then you just die in the fight because they have, X amount of other heroes that are effective. And the duel, I feel like, is when we talk about timing counters, duel is a timing ability in the sense that in early game, a lot of your duels are for farming damage, right? And making that foundation of like, all right, I have at least 54 damage or 45 damage or whatever. You can't get to 45 damage or whatever amount of damage on your Legion in the early game when things are not as important. But then as the game scales, your duels become less of, oh, I want to get damage, and more of, I need to lock this person down so that my character can kill them, or so that they can't team fight, or they can't do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, it's more of a disable that than like
even even once you have your level 25 talent, you have your like plus 1 billion duel damage per win, right? I've personally lost games where I've had like 600 duel damage because if you're dueling the wrong people, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And also, another thing to think about on Legion Commander is like it's really easy to fall in this misconception of like, well, once I have a bunch of damage, I'll just kill everyone. Like, you won't. Yeah,
you never will.
Like, what makes Juggernaut a good carry isn't that he has crit and does a lot of damage. It's that he has an ability like Omni Slash, so that he can like no matter what fight he goes into, his damage is going to get out. Like Lifestealer isn't good because Lifestealer has Feast to do damage. It's because he has a built-in BKB to ensure that he can almost always put out all the damage that he wants to.
Exactly.
Like Legion, what the fuck does Legion have in terms of ensuring her damage gets out? Sven has like Blink BKB Mask of Madness and, has 3 seconds to kill everyone. Legion like blinks in and then has a single target right click. Yeah. And that's it. That is all that you have in terms of ensuring your damage goes out. Yes, you have duel, but we just talked about how duel is used.
Yeah, and that's why we see LC.
You're not going to kill everyone.
Yeah, that's why we see LC played as a offlaner or a jungler, or on rare occasion a mid, because she has a lot of utility in duel, but it is definitely not a carry ability in the sense that a traditional carry like a Juggernaut or an anti-mage or Sven is.
Yeah, she just can't kill everyone on a team. She can like do very specific things, but she's not going to she's not your body of damage on your team. She's just
exactly. Yeah. So let's talk about itemization on LC. So
there's a couple ways. So like if people think the classic Legion jungle, it's just like, all right, I get my fucking boots, my Iron Talon, maybe a Stout Shield if I'm not very good at it, and I am just going to rush my Blink Dagger, and then as soon as I have Brown Boots, Blink Dagger, I'm gonna like go around and duel people, and it's gonna be great. But offlane Legion, not to say whether or not that's the best way to play Legion jungle, which I don't really think it is, but that's just kind of like what the conception is that most people have of Legion. But like the way that you play it in offlane is you don't really have this luxury of, oh, I can sustain in jungle now, so I don't need any items until I get my Blink Dagger. Like I can just save up for that big burst. When you're offlaning, you need to be relevant at all stages of the lane. One of the main roles of the offlaner is you need to force their supports to be dealing with you. And you're not going to do that by having Brown Boots and an Iron Talon at 8 minutes into the game. What you need to do is you like start like Poor Man's Shield, Tango. Obviously, if you are going to start jungling because the lane is super hard or something, yeah, you can go Iron Talon first. But anyway, like what you want to build up to is like your wand, your phase boots, and like you want to have wand, phase boots, and Poor Man's Shield or something like that. Maybe a clarity or two in the laning phase coming up. But sorry, I was like just looking at one of Universe's games where he played Legion, and it was like super cool.
I thought you were gonna say the bad one.
No. It was a good one.
Yeah, I mean, S4 too. I think I was actually looking at S4. I was looking for a universe game. I found the bad one, and then I found the good one, but I saw the S4 one. Anyway, but yeah, so this is something that pretty much all of them do. The first real thing that you're getting, sometimes you go over Venom, but like, again, it's just like the main idea of you laning is you need to be like making as much pressure on the lane as possible. And that means you need to be buying items the entire time. Like, you can't fall off. Like, your experience is going up. You can't also neglect your ability to scale with gold as well. So you get the phase boots, maybe not even just for the damage, but it's a huge mobility thing. There's a lot of synergy with like int treads, press the attack, agi treads, and after I've healed, I switch to strength treads. Wow, efficiency. But what you need to do is you need to be able to get duels out before your blink dagger. So you're laning with your poor man's shield and your tango on your boots, and maybe you get an orb of venom because you're fighting and you're forcing them, you're making their carry upset, and then you get your phase boots at like 6 minutes, and then you get duel at like minute 7 or something like that. You are never gonna have a blink dagger at level 7 if you just have like poor man's shield blink dagger. That's just never gonna happen. You're gonna zone immediately. Your life's gonna suck. So yeah, you go for the phase boots as early as possible. And then you like go around and you look for the opportunity for a kill. One of the worst things about legions is when they just like walk around looking for the solo kill. Like, they just get their blink dagger, they find someone, they press the attack themselves, Q, blink, duel, and then like they get someone to 70% or to 30% HP, and then nothing happens. Like, that's not how you play Legion. You get your phase boots, you find your CM or something, you smoke up with her, and then you like run to someone, and then and then she frostbites them, and then you phase, run up to them, and then or you W phase, Q, run up to them, then duel. You don't have to do everything alone. You're not all alone in the world. Other people want you to succeed. You don't have to take it all on your shoulders. Just because you're commanding the legions doesn't mean you can't rely on your advisors every so often.
Yeah, perfect. So we went through that. So itemization-wise, that's definitely the early game, right? And Legion, a lot of times, I think anybody playing Legion has run into the issue where you build up a lot of cheap items, and then it's 50 minutes, and you're like, okay, well, I still have like a bunch of cheap stuff, and I'm just not scaling well. So what is the ideal optimization? I know the constant issue is, do I go Blink, do I go Shadow Blade? I would say 1,000% of the time you go Blink Dagger, and sometimes you also get a Shadow Blade.
So the main build that people like to do is like phase boots, wand or whatever. Whether you want to upgrade your stick or not is up to you. Blink dagger, blade mail, and then BKB, and then whatever you want after that. BKB is always great because it's you want to duel someone, right? And you don't want that to get interrupted. Like, you want to be able to blink and get to them and fucking get the duel, not like blink, oh no, I got hexed, oh no, everything sucks. Like, that's not, you don't want that. So yeah, BKB is great. Blade mail is awesome. You don't need to worry about your damage scaling. A carry will kill themselves with your blade mail. And yeah, it's cool to get items like Desolator and shit like that. Like, you'll do a wild amount of damage, but you don't exactly need to do a wild amount of damage if depending on who you're dueling. But also, if you have that much gold spent into like damage, you may actually just have no survivability, and you'll duel someone, and then their TA is going to blink in and meld strike you and kill you in 2 shots because you have like no armor and are a tiny squishy person.
That makes sense.
So that's her. You max overwhelming odds. You get a point and press the attack at 2, point and moment of courage at 4, unless you're jungling, and then it's point and press the attack at 4 and moment of courage at 2. So like, if you're jungling, you want the extra strikes with the lifesteal. If you're laning, you want to press the attack to dispel yourself and heal, but you're always going to max your overwhelming odds. And I personally like 2 points moment of courage. Most people like like getting press the attack like really far up before the 2 points in moment of courage, either to 3 or 4 on your heal before moment of courage. But once you get 2 points in courage, you like can sustain and jungle perfectly. So sometimes I even might go like 2 points overwhelming odds, 1 point press the attack, and then 2 points in moment of courage, like 2-1-2 if I'm doing a ton of jungling. And the idea there is that I'm going to be getting enough levels that I'll get my maxed overwhelming odds like faster or whatever, just because of the extra point. But it depends how the lane is going. If you're not jungling a lot, yes, just leave moment of courage at 1. It's fine. And that's just kind of how you play it. For talents, most people like the XP gain over the strength, which is a surprise to me. But hey, I'm into it. I've been going that on my Abaddon lately, and it's been pretty good. And then at 15, you get damage over the move speed in general. If you have plus like 1 trillion damage, maybe go the move speed, but I think the damage is pretty solid. And then it's kind of a toss-up between the minus respawn time or armor. If you're actively engaging in these fights and you're scaling with their carries and the armor will make you survivable, go for that. If you're just getting totally shit on and nothing matters and everything sucks and your life is awful, go the respawn time.
Yes, I agree. All right, all of one. We have completed our game. We have played maybe the worst game we've ever played on Theorycrafting Thursday. Thursday, excuse me.
I think it is.
I cannot immediately think of a worse game. Boy, okay, so how do we even get into this? First of all, if you looked on YouTube, my OBS refused to work, which was awfully convenient because, boy, this game sucked. So thank God it broke for this recording and not a future one.
Yeah.
But Prouds is up there, so you can watch it anyway. Anyway, this was a 40-minute game. The enemy team had 61 kills. We had 28. And almost everybody on our team had at least 10 deaths, minus the Enigma, who only had 9. So these are team comps. The enemy team had a Ember Spirit mid, which we talked about earlier, and a very close matchup with TA. They had an offlane Nyx Assassin, and they ended up offlane tri-laning mostly with a Nyx, and then additionally the supports, the Witch Doctor and the Silencer support, and they had a safe lane Ursa. The Witch Doctor roamed into mid lane a few times as well. Our team, which, boy, this is a great example of one of those things where people are like, man, 2K pubs suck, I can't wait to get into 4K. And this was a 4K, high 4K average game, and our team had 2 junglers. We had a jungle Nature's Prophet in the enemy jungle because he was mad that I took mid. And then we had a safe lane, like our team jungler, in the Enigma. And then we also had a safe lane Timbersaw, which we saw fail repeatedly at the major. And we had the offlane LC that we talked about. And of course the mid TA.
If you are going to have a safe lane Timbersaw, though, I think this, like, our 3 cores are a great set of cores to do it with.
Yeah. That's fair.
Like,
I agree with that.
Not to talk about offlane Timbersaw too much, but like we have a tower hitter and a major physical damage scaling core in TA. We have like the single target lockdown, but like taken care of by our Legion. But I don't have a lot of AOE damage, so like neither of us have good AOE magic damage. Like, yeah, I have my Q, but that's it. But like Timber kind of covers what our 2 cores lack. It's just that you also need a full team to make that happen to work. Yeah, like you can't just do it.
Yeah, you don't want 2 junglers on a team.
Yeah, God, isn't it like the most obnoxious thing when like there's something like very obviously wrong, like you have a fucking, like someone's like intentionally feeding, and then someone's just like, haha, easy mid, and you're like, dude, you like someone fed you for it. Like the issue wasn't our like 7 and 13 Shadow Fiend, it is that our safe lane is aggressively feeding, like in their fountain right now. Like that's not the thing that's happening.
Yes. So I like some of these games. Well, we always complain about our teammates, and we try not to do it that much. But
let's
it just
not
comes
complain
out.
about our teammates. We'll just say having 2 junglers is a difficult position to be in a game of Dota 2.
Yes, especially one that refuses to fight. Like he showed up to a few things here and there, but he was just like, we would have entire team fights, and this Nature's Prophet would be in the enemy jungle. And oh god, okay.
So the situation, it might have been almost okay because so you were like winning your lane pretty handily. And so the
like
matchup
the first
was
few minutes.
It was it was for the time until Ursa got level like 3. So like early on, I was in my lane and I was kind of fucking with it. It was a 3v1 lane, 2 range supports with good zoning ability. Both Witch Doctor and Silencer are fantastic zoning support. Silencer is a top tier zoning support. Witch Doctor is also very good. And then Ursa, which is so good in 1v1s, I would almost call him a zoning carry, because holy shit, I cannot think of a single offlaner that can fight Ursa besides maybe Enigma and Puck. And Legion is not numbered amongst them. But I was doing pretty good. I was spamming my Qs out and getting some decent damage, making them upset. And then eventually they realized, hey, wait a sec. Legion doesn't do any damage if there's only an Ursa here. And then they just fucked right off and decided to kill you repeatedly. And as we said earlier, like TA Ember is like it's a knife fight, but it's a little bit in TA's favor. But as you can learn, a knife fight is actually really easy if you just have someone holding the other person back. So all they had to do was walk up and then like tell you to sit down for 2 seconds, and then Ember kind of took his knife and shoved it in your eye. Yeah. And it went all the way through there. You know, it was scratching your brain and shit. You were twitching. It was just not a good situation.
Yeah, it was some Negan stuff.
And it was some very Negan stuff. And you lost. You fucking lost your lane, Sam.
Oh, yeah. It was terrible. I fully admit. So I will say with the tempo of the Ember TA matchup was I had some really good side blades on.
Oh, yeah, you were like 200 gold up on him. Like you were stomping him.
I had some really successful side blades on the second and third wave, and I really set the tone. And then his courier got sniped, which helps me even more. But then he just shrined because couriers. I mean, who needs bottles these days anyway?
Yeah,
but he shrined up. But the problem was I got him within like 25 health of death at right around 2 minutes, and then he shrines up because why not? And then he comes back to lane. And then at 3 minutes, we have a fight. And again, we fight almost to the death. But unlike the previous fight, which I decidedly won, this fight, he kills me. He has like 50 health left. And then he just goes back to base. And he comes back. So he got first blood gold with that. And any of these close matchups are usually decided when one person takes a clear advantage. And obviously him getting first blood gold and the XP led him into an advantage, right? So our close matchup that is, arguably slightly favored in either direction, depending on who you ask, is suddenly I'm disadvantaged. And then on top of that, a minute later, Witch Doctor roams my lane, and then Witch Doctor roams my lane again. And then once Ember's 6, I can't kill him, but he can kill me. That's like the really bad part about this matchup.
It's kind of like it's kind of like Counter-Strike, but with like absurdly destitute weaponry, where you just start with knives and you're doing this knife fight, and then as soon as you get one kill, you have like money. And then he just buys a handgun. And man, knives are bad against people who can shoot you in the fucking head.
Yeah. And then like he just had his way with me basically. And they roam my lane again, and they roamed on top lane because they didn't need to have anyone in the safe lane since that 1v1 advantage is the Ursa. And I mean the Ursa was 31-3 at the end of that game, and the Ember was 18-4. It was just brutal. And the other thing was, so we talked about counters before, and we actually didn't get into this, but in mid matchups specifically, the way you deal with counters or with bad matchups or losing mid is you rotate your supports. And he was winning his lane, and they still rotate the supports, and that's what secures the winning lane, right? It takes a decent lane or a good lane and then makes it way better and way more oppressive. So we did not have supports in a literal sense. We literally did not have a support that we could roam to help me, but he had supports roaming into his lane when he didn't even need them. So this is why, one jungler means your one support has to be able to be attentive in doing that. You have two junglers, it is impossible. One time, the NP TP'd in and got a final blow on the Ember and killed the Ember, but that was after I was already dead, and they had already escaped with their silencer and their Witch Doctor, who chased me down and stole my int.
Yeah, normally I would say not to say that everything was your fault, but I
definitely played bad too. That didn't help.
But do you think that? Okay, yeah. So I keep wanting to say you should have just rotated to jungle, or just do a stack win when you can. But when you have two jungler, you can't rotate. Normally you have one. If you have a jungler and an alchemist, and the alchemist I need to I am a jungler and a mid. I'm two things. I contain multitudes. There is a duality to my persona as an alchemist. And that's similar to TA and Storm and shit. You can't, and Shadow Fiend. If you do the camp, that's my rotation is I fucking nuke the wave, and then I stack the hard camp and then clear it. You can't take that from me. I'm balanced around this. But yeah, so I would have said, you could have fallen back to jungle, which I did say at some point, but that was after people were moving around a lot more and after the lane was already hard lost. Do you think maybe you should have just stayed away from any knife fights at all in the mid lane and just not tried to kill him and just let it be a slightly advantaged lane to you and not try to push it all the way?
Yeah. So he actually once he has 6, it doesn't really matter. That was really the core issue, is that I lost that first, or I won that first engagement, but I didn't win it hard enough, so I didn't get the kill. And then in the second engagement, he kills me, right? And so then he builds up a XP advantage. And then on top of that, they cinch the lane victory with the supports roaming in, right? So it kind of brings you into that false sense of false pretense in my own mind, or in the mind of many mids, where you think,
you won the first thing and you think you have a big advantage.
That's why I took the second fight. Yeah, that's why I took the second fight and lost it, because, you know, whatever. The reason I lost it, I think, is mostly just because he was killing me without attacking me. So my creeps, or his creeps, were hitting me and taking A, refraction charges off, and B, just hitting me. And then my creeps were not hitting him. And then eventually, once he started right-clicking me, he has a PMS and I don't. So that makes that 50 damage difference at the end of the day.
I mean, and your refraction goes away immediately as soon as your creeps are hitting you.
And so I lose that fight, and then you kind of get that false thought in your mind that, oh, well, like, that was one bad fight, it was close before, and then you come back to lane, and then they gank you, and then you get that false mindset that, oh, well, the only reason he killed me is because he had a support. And Maledict, of course, is also really good. I had to first pick TA, by the way, in this game, because Brown was like, I'm going to go mid. I was like, well, I don't really care, because I'm recording a game, and it is midnight, and I don't have time to play two.
And your highest MMR, so it's like... Yeah. Like,
and,
if the highest MMR selects mid, like, that's, I mean, if you're going to start a fight, at least have some MMR to back up the fact that this person knows nothing about you.
Yeah. I'm honestly so happy that person lost solo MMR. It makes the game worth it. And
the second fight, man, that thing sucked. You had a bunch of creeps on it. There was just like a lot of creeps, and you put up his flame guard, and then you're just like, well, here I am. Kind of locked into this one.
I mean, one of the fallbacks on TA used to be, or you used to do it every game, now you do it as a fallback, is just stacking ancients, right? Classically, Wagamama made a guide like one day, like 2 years ago, and then every TA forever after that did the ancient stacking thing until 7.0 changed and added the new stack camp.
Yep.
And you actually see, I take an ancient stack at like 10 minutes or something, and when you have the new creeps, it sucks because they regen 20 HP a second per creep. And it makes it much harder, and it de-incentivizes the stacking mentality on TA. And so eventually I did it, but I had to shrine to kill them, and it was just not a pretty process. So your fallback is, like you said, to jungle, but you can't do that when you have two junglers, and especially like Enigma. Enigma jungles like very efficiently and kills a ton of stuff. Yeah. So it's just one of those like really no win condition lanes, and I couldn't like go to a different lane and kill somebody, right? Like once I'm 6, I have kill potential. Death, but
it's not like you asked for a fight. You were just like playing your lane, and you only have 1 point in side blades, so like you have to play pretty close up to it. And he's a melee hero, so it's not like you could be like, oh, I should have positioned more safely. Like you just like that's the hero within your melee range had to be the other melee hero. Like that's just kind of what happened, and then you died.
I will say, kind of my last point on this laning phase, and I can't tell if it's a misplay by myself or if it was a good play that just went poorly, but I went for a point in meld at 4, and classically that's how you always used to play the Ember matchup, is you would go heavily into meld, or relatively heavily, compared to normal game where you almost never get meld in laning phase.
Shred his armor.
Yeah, the only other time I get meld in laning phase is against a Timbersaw, because he's such a low armor hero. And I mean, actually, you probably wouldn't even do it. I get to do it against like Tiny, I guess. But you can abuse Ember for being a low armor hero, or like a Monkey King, I suppose. But so I went in for meld at level 4 because I was like, all right, we're having these fights skirmishy. I can kill him, and I almost kill him like a couple times. I get him really low, and that's how Nature's Prophet ends up killing him, actually.
Yeah.
With I'm watching meld, right now. Which helps a lot. But because of that, I had to be more in when I was taking creep waves and whatnot, since I didn't have a second point in side blades. Yeah. So it also encouraged me to fight in the sense that like mentally I'm like, all right, well, I can win fights now when I really couldn't. So it was just a disaster. And it was definitely like death by 1,000 cuts, or like 4 cuts basically instead of 1. Because it's not like oh boy, my lane is lost, he's better than me. It's like, okay, we're
I can definitely
even, one thing goes wrong and then we suck.
In a lot of these engages or whatever, like you definitely still have the mindset that you're like stronger than him, and you step to him like, oh, I'm gonna go behind the creep wave and like deny a creep to hit him, and then like a fucking support walks up and you get casked, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, it was not good all around. And then like I was playing from tilt too because my OBS was broken, and I was like tilted free game. And then I get like contested mid, and I'm like, I'm recording a show. I don't care about your stupid 4.6k like attempts to mid. And so I was just tilted from the get-go, and tilted Dota is not good Dota.
Yep.
So let's talk about you. about that?
Yeah. So my lane was okay. I thought so. This is another thing. Like having the junglers isn't just bad for your junglers or for like your heroes that want to have supports in their lane. I was against Silencer and Witch Doctor and Ursa. I cannot think of a worse tri lane to go against in a casual pub setting. I mean, I'm sure there are worse things to go against, but like, I mean, of all the archetypes of pubs of like tri lanes to run into, that's pretty bad. 2 range supports and an Ursa, like that's just shit. So I was like, yo, I want to start out jungling so I can get like, my boots and a poor man shield boots and like an iron talent or something. And then I can actually kind of like, I can trade 1 or 2 hits with Ursa and then get back, instead of just like, oh, I have poor man shield and like no boots. So the second this guy sees me, he's going to just kill me. He's going to farm up his phase boots while I have nothing and no boots and it sucks. So I couldn't jungle at the start. I had to just hang out there because people were already jungling my jungle. And it went okay. I just got overwhelming odds and I just started poking them every so often. And eventually I ran out of mana, so I got a raindrop really early on. Most people don't go raindrop on LC, but I think it was fine. I just got it for the mana regen. Maybe like 2 clarities would have been better. It probably would have been. But
it also doesn't come up on a lot of Dota buff stuff. I feel like it doesn't come up if you're doing research.
Look straight up in like the build section with TrueSight, you see literally every purchase.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, I've been looking. If I see their clarities, I imagine I'm seeing their raindrops.
Yeah,
like, I see true. If someone buys a 40-minute clarity. So I'm pretty sure it's there.
It's just something I look at, and it doesn't show certain items that like get sold.
Yeah,
at the end.
Yeah, if you see
like the overview.
Yeah, that's on like the general thing. Anyway, yeah. So I was just like identifying. All right, I need to get phase boots. I need to help Sam mid. And I need to like get out of this lane so I wanted to stay in as long as possible to try to force their supports to deal with me, but eventually they realized Ursa is never going to need that assistance. So, I tried to look for my transition, and that was just going to be once I get phase boots, I get a smoke, I get full mana, I walk over and I try to kill Ember with you. But as soon as I got my phase, you died. And, as soon as I got my phase and my smoke delivered, you died. And basically like, I envisioned, how does this work? Well, Sam's dying, but we fucking, switch it around. We get the kill mid, and maybe we get some advantage. I get a fast blink dagger. We do everything. So I envisioned the thing that was going to lead us to victory, and it didn't work out. So from there, it was just like, I was just going to like walk around and look to maybe try to get like snap kills out of nowhere. But like as bad things keep happening, that your chances of success are slimmer and slimmer, and you got to do crazier and crazier plans.
Yeah. Gotta make those like, low percentage plays.
Yeah, but if they do come up, it'll come up big. Like, you'd rather, it's better to play to win than play to lose slowly is
exactly
the best way to phrase it. So I just kind of kept looking for openings, and there were very, very few. No, like, oh, they think they're going to kill this guy, but then I purge the chains, and then we turn around for the kill. It just never really worked out. So yeah, I just tried to get my blink and my blade mail, and we managed to hold on for a while, but eventually we just kind of lost.
Yeah, and like especially considering this, like we did our segment on being countered, and this game we were so countered. Like not only did I have to play a matchup that went disadvantageous, but your off lane was. I mean, I wouldn't call Ursa a counter to LC, but Ursa is a great laning opponent for an LC. Like great in the favor of the Ursa, and the biggest one, of course. Also, Witch Doctor is a pretty solid TA counter because Maledict ruins your charges. But the big counter,
really?
Of course,
how many times does that thing tick? It's every 4 seconds. I don't think that's that bad.
Enough.
It's every 4 seconds. I think it's more like cask bouncing around.
No, it doesn't tick every 4 seconds. It ticks every 4 seconds.
Curses all enemy, causing them to take a set amount of damage each second, as well as burst of damage every 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It takes a lot of charges.
Yeah, it's 14 a second plus the burst every 4, which is a separate instance. That's wild.
It's basically an entire refraction in like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But the big one was, of course, we had Enigma and they had Silencer. So every time we got a good black hole, which was very rarely because that guy was not good, he would just silence our ult, and we were just.
They also picked 2 supports, and we picked 2 junglers, which was kind of
that's a pretty sick counter. Pro tip: if the enemy team picks 2 junglers, just pick 2 supports and play your game, and you win.
Yeah, it's I've been actually using that technique a lot lately.
Yeah, it's something. It's classic, like so. But some people choose to play against greedy teams by picking a greedy team themselves and be like, oh, well, we'll just win late. But the real way to do it is just say, okay, we're going to pick an actual team and we're going to win early. And that's why you'll climb playing support, even in lower tier pubs, because it's good to have supports. There's a reason why high MMR pubs and pro players play supports, not just five cores. Anyway, we have complained enough. We've had enough conversation. We're going to do our plugs and then close out the show. You can, of course, watch this game on youtube.com/.btv1. This week, we only have Proud's POV, so you can enjoy it or be miserable with us. Some combination of the two, ideally. Some Schadenfreude would be like Schadenfreude.
You can get my beautiful Legion Commander, amazing mindset, trying to stay positive in times of strife.
I mean, people enjoy watching people have bad games, right? Like, that's a thing. So
I don't.
I mean, I don't, but I know people do. Like, that's why people watch Roland, right? On the stream. That's a joke. I love Roland. Okay. You can also watch all our other content there, of course. The Twitch stream is twitch.tv/.btv. You can watch Roland streaming practically every day there. We have a .b stream team stream is being rescheduled. We're still hammering out exactly what day it's going to be. It might be Tuesdays, but just pay attention and we'll keep you posted. You can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Defense of the Patience. You can go to our new and improved website, defensepatience.com. I hope I'm saying this now, but I assume it's going to be out tomorrow, like we intended it to be. We'll find out. And there's probably other things. Twitter, I'm at Ursinity. Proud is at Proud Dota. Our show's at .p_show. And I feel like that's enough plugs. Really? I feel like that's enough. iTunes reviews are nice. I like iTunes reviews.
Sure.
Anyway, if you have done this wonderful combo, if you have taken our advice, but if you lost, well, that's okay, guys, because it's been our theory, but it's probably your two junglers' faults.
It is actually your two junglers' fault. Like,
absolutely.
I feel like there's something else I wanted to say here, but we're just gonna end.